Hubris is a very good word.
I just had opinions on things of the way I thought that things should be done based on not very good information or experience. Just on, I'm like, hey, I was the leader of this company. We've always kind of done things the way that I thought they should go. So let's do it. And so I think that was probably pretty frustrating for our team.
Hello and welcome to Curious as Hell, a podcast about leading and growing with curiosity. My name is Tyler Chisholm, and I am excited to be here today with my guest, Mr. Iggy Domagowski. How you doing, Iggy?
I'm doing great, Tyler. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, it's my pleasure to have you on the show, man. I've had the privilege of knowing you for many, many years, and more importantly, I've had the privilege of seeing your journey as a leader. Started off, I want to say, is it fair to call your first gig more of a startup gig, smaller business?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay, then you worked your way up into something maybe for anyone who's listening in Calgary, Tundra Process Solutions, a little bit of a larger company, scale up and exit, and then found your way all the way to Wajax, which I know every time we joke about it, one of the oldest companies in Canada, which I find incredibly interesting.
Yeah, 9 years older than the country itself.
Which is amazing. And I read this morning online as I was doing some professional creeping as I do, I started as a blacksmith shop in Montreal, no less.
It did. Yeah, we're currently headquartered in Toronto, but a third of our people are in Quebec.
That's amazing. So I'm going to hit you with, we'll get into a little story. We'll talk about the journey and the different stages and phases of your leadership as we go. But I want to hit you with something right off the bat. Season 1, we really are camping out on this idea of the risk of certainty for leaders. How do you respond? How does that feel? What resonate? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me here. Always a pleasure. I think this is our 6th podcast.
I think it is.
Together.
I think it is. Yes, we have hung out many times. And
yeah.
I keep having you back. It's a good sign.
Yeah. So thank you for having me here. I've thoroughly enjoyed the journey. Thoroughly enjoyed watching your journey.
Thanks.
With Clear Motive and now with your book and this project and this. So it's wonderful to be here.
Thanks.
And wonderful to be a part of all of this. And I think it really comes down to almost the title of your book, to being curious and leading and growing with curiosity. And I've had the opportunity to be a part of companies that are really small, where there's a small group of people that really kind of do know everything, at least about the business and what's going on in the business on a daily basis. Of course, there's lots of things that you don't know about what's going on outside of your business, but you have the answers that are kind of happening on the daily, and in those businesses, you kind of grow and you grow and you grow, and people just assume that you're the person that has all the answers. And if you've been there the longest, and if you're one of the founders, you might not have all the answers, but in many cases, you probably do have more context and more information than anybody else in the company.
Just 'cause you've been there and seen it.
Yeah, and so by default, people just come to you with everything, and so you kind of fall into this role almost naturally as the one who either does or at least is supposed to have all of the answers.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a pretty natural thing for especially for founders to get into, or people who join a business when it's really small. And then some of these things change. You maybe have a rapid growth period where you just hire a whole bunch of people, and kind of as you, at least in our experience, once you hit sort of 50, 75 people, you get to a point where you no longer know what's going on everywhere in the company. And that's actually, it can be quite frustrating. I know it was for me, and it can be kind of daunting because, you're used to being in a position where you were totally I don't know if in control is the right word, but at least you had knowledge of everything that was going on. So you had this feeling, whether it's true or not, of control. And then you get to a point where you realize, hey, there are some people over there. Those 5 people, they're doing something I don't even know about, and that doesn't feel good the first time that happens. And so kind of getting from that point of where you believe that you have to be the person that has all the answers to thinking that maybe those people know this thing a lot better than I do. And for me, that really came true with project management. In our Tundra business, when we were around 75 or 100 people, we started to hire a team to do project management of these larger jobs. And they were doing all sorts of things that I had never even heard of. And you just kind of have to trust that they really know. Well,
that's not even just knowing what's going on over there, but you brought in skill sets that were not your skill set.
Yeah. And I think when you're younger, at least I know I did, you just have this hubris that you think you know the way that things should be done inside of the company that you're leading.
Yep.
But when you look back, you realize you really had no idea. You just had some opinions.
Hubris is a very good word.
I just had opinions on things of the way I thought that things should be done based on not very good information or experience. Just on, I'm like, hey, I was the leader of this company. We've always kind of done things the way that I thought they should go. So let's do it. And so I think that was, that was probably pretty frustrating for our teams
I'm curious at that
time.
moment. Did this get pointed out to you? Did you have a mirror moment or a fireside chat moment? Like self-curiosity for me is so critical. I think I could have wrote a book about, forget about all the other types of curiosity, just get really curious of how you're showing up. How did you realize that was going on for you? Because in hindsight, it all sounds pretty clear.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that it's ever really all in one moment. I think there's moments when you realize just how smart your team is, and they did something, and they didn't do it the way that you would have done it, and it worked really well.
They got a good outcome.
Yeah, and so those are moments, and there's moments where you do have. Hopefully, if you're lucky to, you have some people that are on the team that are a little bit older and quite a bit wiser than you, and sometimes they take the opportunity to point something out to you in a very nice, delicate way, and so
we all need those people.
Yeah, and if you choose to listen, then those can be very valuable, and then I had the opportunity to we had this Tundra business. It was about 150 people at the time. I knew there were a lot of things in the business that I didn't know, but I had like a pulse on most things that were happening. And then we got bought in 2021 by a company called Wajax, which is, as you mentioned, one of Canada's oldest companies, 167 years old, and a decent size bigger. It's a publicly traded company. It's got about 3,000 people, about 100 branches across the country. And there was just all of a sudden so many things that I didn't know. In fact, most of the things happening in the company, I had no idea about. And so that's
also privately held versus publicly traded. So you're just also in a different operating model.
So everything is new, and there you really realize that you can't be the person that has all the answers or even a good amount of the answers.
Nor is it kind of expected.
Yeah,
was that also coming into that role? And you and I chatted along the way that there was all of a sudden like, well, you don't have to get involved in this because there's a whole team that's experts at that.
Yeah.
But you had to have that broader sense. Was that, how much of a transition? I'm going to pause for a second. Let's go back to the smaller one. I don't want to skip over that. When does manager and leader start to move between? Because sometimes in a smaller business, you're the founder, but you're kind of the micromanager. You're in there, you're doing all the work versus that role of leading, which is maybe setting that bigger tone. Let's talk about that before we even get into the bigger publicly traded realm of like, how would you look at now going back to it when you go, oh yeah, I started to become more of a leader versus the guy that just was roll up his sleeves, kind of manhandling things, if you will, at that time. Because I think a lot of leaders that I've encountered, especially that are on the rise, they really struggle between what is management and what is leadership.
Yeah. I think I was pretty lucky in that I just had a really, really incredible business mentor. His name's Mike. We're still partners on some things, and
That's great.
We still work together, and we're still really close friends. And so we've been working together for 26 years or so.
That's a testament.
It's a good one. So we've done a bunch.
It's a business marriage.
Yeah, we've done a bunch of things together, and we continue to do things together. So we'll easily make it to 30 plus together.
Awesome.
And when we started a company buying journey together. We worked together for 5 years, and then we started a company buying journey together. And when we started that, he's 20 years older than me, and so at that point he said that he would be kind of the strategic capital allocator.
Okay.
And that I was much younger and that I needed to get some experience actually running these companies. And so I got to see what I thought what I thought was a good strategist leader. And so he had a good model that seemed to work. He wanted to have only one direct report in the company. So he was essentially acting as the board. He was a board chair, but there was no board. He didn't like having a board. He just wanted the board to be him, the mirror, and his wife, basically that he could ask questions to. And so that's how we set it up. And
he was kind of bringing the capital in to go on this journey.
Yeah, he was bringing the capital in, and because I was running the business on the daily, and he had one direct report, but he was still showing up to the office for 40 plus hours a week.
Okay.
So he was there all the time, but he was really able to step back, take his, 2 decades of extra experience that he had over me, and say, here are the things where we're weak in this company that we need to figure out. Whatever it was, like, we're weak on finances and receivables.
Okay.
We got to fix that. Here's at a high level how I think we should fix it, and then I would go do it. So I got to see.
And would he give you some
happening.
latitude inside of that? Like, hey, here's the general coach. I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do it, but I'm going to point out, I'm going to keep you in the guardrails. Go kind of figure it out. Was it a little bit was there a balance there, or was it very prescriptive?
Yeah, I think in the beginning it was a little more prescriptive, but at the same time, our first
maybe it needed to be.
But at the same time, our first company that we bought was a small business. It was in just outside of Vancouver.
Okay.
It was a little air compressor manufacturer, and we bought it. And so I moved there. We both lived in Winnipeg. He moved to Calgary because we bought another company there that he was working with. I moved to Vancouver, and I was running this thing. And I called him, I think a week after we bought the company. And I said, so how often are you going to come out here? And he said, well, never. So I said, I'm running, we got a bigger one in Calgary that I got to take care of. We can talk whenever you want, but I'm not really coming out there. And it wasn't never, but it certainly.
I appreciate the sentiment of I'm putting this to you. I'm giving this to you.
It certainly wasn't very often, but he was really good at being prescriptive where, sometimes you just know the answer. Right, it's like a basic thing that I maybe didn't have the basic knowledge, and he said, this is how everyone does it. Just do it this way. We
don't need to reinvent.
Don't try to mess around. And then in other cases where the answer wasn't super clear, he would say, here's maybe how I would do it, but you got to go do the research. And then as our tenure together evolved over time, eventually we got to a spot where it was, here's how I think you should do it, but this is completely your decision. And if you do it totally differently than I would have, that's totally fine too. And because you have to own it. So I got to see what a good strategist and a good leader look like. And I really just tried to model myself over time. After that, I don't know exactly when it really changed, but I think it's one of those evolutions over time where
you all of a sudden wake up and it's changed.
You keep picking up the behaviors of all those that you admire, and then no one's perfect, so you don't want to be exactly like someone, so you pick up the behaviors.
Well, nor can we be.
Yeah.
Because they're really good at being them, and I'll be good at being me. But I can, as my buddy used to say, they've probably stepped on a landmine you're about to step on. You should take that advice.
Yeah.
You don't need to lose your leg to learn the lesson.
Yeah, absolutely.
How critical for you, to me, leading and coaching, or leading and mentoring, they feel synonymous in so many ways. And I know the leaders that have had good mentors in their life, or good role models, or whatever you want to call them, seem to do better. How critical is it for you as a senior leader to now pass that down? But how critical is it for people kind of on the journey up to seek out those people in their lives?
I mean, I was pretty lucky because I met this particular mentor, Mike. He recruited me out of university.
I remember that story.
Yeah. So I was really lucky that it was early on, but I just think it's so important. But mentorship's such a tough thing because it is. You really have to find a really, really great fit. And there has to be something meaningful in it for both people. It can't just be a one-way kind of path. I mean,
because then it becomes hiring a coach. Then it's actually a different thing, right?
Yeah.
Mentorship is definitely more of this exchange or this relationship where sometimes I might hire a coach to teach me certain things or get me through a certain stage, and then I'll move on and maybe get a different coach.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's tricky too, because you have to find the right mentors at the right stages that can help you along. And, so when I looked at my mentor, the benefit to me was pretty obvious. I got a sweet mentor and a job, and I got to, get equity in this company and do all these things. And I think for him, it was pretty good too. Cause I I was running these companies that he was allocating capital to. I think that we had a 100% level of trust, which is very important when you're running small and mid-sized businesses. I think there's, in a lot of those businesses, the governance and controls are never as good as you think they are. And so there actually is a lot of opportunity for people to do bad things and kind of to line their own pockets if they're wired that way. And so I think having someone that you just implicitly trust that can kind of, look over everything for you and make sure that things are working properly is pretty good. So I think that was the clear benefit for him. But in a non kind of working paid relationship, finding a mentor can be tricky. And, people call you, they call me and say, hey, can we talk about certain things? And it almost has to be at the right stage. Like if you're a junior analyst and you're going to an SVP of a company to get advice, like that doesn't always fit. You kind of have to go like
it has to connect. That's a really good point.
Yeah, you kind of have to go like 1 or 2 levels above so that they can give you real advice for what you're doing and so that it's relevant. And if you're early in your career and you're getting advice from a CEO or an SVP or an EVP of a company, like a lot of that advice is just it's meaningless because you don't you don't even know what it means. So I think finding the right level, always getting some type of warm introduction is really handy. And I've found I've lots of mentors still to this day, and I've got a roster of probably 10 or 15 people that I call on that I would kind of view as mentors. And I make it a point of reaching out every 6 months or so to grab a lunch. I have my list of questions that I have for them that I want to go over. I usually hope that I can add some value to them. And the group that I found is awesome for mentors is those that have just retired. Right,
because they're hungry, they've got energy for it.
They're great. And I think when you retire from a very busy role, one of the things that I've read and learned and from talking to these people is you don't realize how quickly it shuts off. Right, like the whole like when you retire out of a senior role, I mean, the king is dead, long live the new king, and you're out, and so no one's calling
that
them
phone is
anymore.
Not ringing anymore, for those reasons.
So if you're the one that's calling, all of a sudden it's somebody who's got a lot of time, and some people have prepped very well for retirement. They've read all the books and they're ready and they have hobbies.
Not everyone is. That's not true.
And other people don't. Other people think that they'll play golf, and they do that 3 times a week, and the other 100 hours of however many waking hours are just wide open. So I've found recently retired leaders are just so willing to share their knowledge. And you want to meet for a long lunch? No problem, right?
Yeah, I've got time. When you made something about the context of also the right mentor at the right time and the right level, but you also need to know enough about what's going on with that other person to give advice that's actually worth giving. I've watched a TED Talk recently called Taming Your Advice Monster. And it was great. I've recommended everyone watch it because you immediately will think of someone in your life or you think of yourself. But rushing in so quickly is such a human trait to go, I've got it figured out, even though I've learned nothing about your situation.
Yeah.
That need to be curious and like taking enough time to understand what's actually going on in someone's world that you can give them maybe advice that actually could be relevant, not just what you think in the moment.
Yeah.
Which can be very fun to just give random advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can be very intoxicating.
Yeah. And I've kind of, I'm sure you get asked for advice on certain things all the time. I get advice on certain things, and I've almost defaulted to not giving advice anymore, just because, like you said, it's so personal to the person. And so where I've sort of defaulted to these days is I just try to go back to a story that, where I was in a similar situation, or at least that I perceived was similar, and just say, here's how I thought about it. And then here's what I actually did. And that's what I do with my kids too. Because I mean, I've learned that, and I should have remembered from when I was a kid. Turns out kids don't like advice from adults, especially their parents.
Yep.
And
everybody just laughed and rolled their eyes as they're listening right now.
Yeah.
Every parent.
Right. It's so true. But I do find that when my kids are going through something, and we just talk it through, and I say, if I was in your shoes, here's how I would think about the problem, right? Like here's just how I would frame the problem. And then I would say, and when I was younger, I did actually go through this exact thing. If I did, and here's what I actually did, and here's roughly
what I might do.
Yeah, here's how it turned out, and here's where the lessons that I learned. And I just kind of leave them with that and say, you're going to do what you're going to do. My kids are almost 16, so they listen. I find they listen to stories and they listen to how to frame a problem, but but most teens don't really listen to.
It's part of their journey. They're entitled not to listen.
Yeah, exactly.
You get smarter as they get older. I found that. The same thing holds true for leaders, but we get time compression and we get demand. So how do you, because I would argue that same advice would really work well if you had time in an office environment. Someone's like, I've got this problem. Well, let me walk you through. And they're like, Just give me the answer. Like, what recommendation or what do you do to try to bring some of that same type of storytelling and gestalt level, exchange? I think that's what that's called. Just specifically, when you don't give direct advice, you give a story that could be relevant, and then the person gets to Socratically go, "Oh, I get it." That all sounds really nice when we all have time.
Yeah.
But at work, it tends to get killed by the tyranny of the urgent.
It does, but I mean, I try to, whenever someone comes to me, I try to think that, like, is this actually my decision to make?
Oh,
should this actually be my decision to do something with, or is this their decision to make, and maybe they just need some guidance? And in some cases, as a leader of your company, as leader of my company, there's a certain strategic path forward.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to remind them of that. Sometimes you have to remind them of, well, this is our strategic priority that we've all agreed on, so it's got to align with that.
If all else fails, go back to the plan.
Yeah.
Go back to the plan.
And then we'll also try to pull them back to our core values and our purpose statement, and say, well, and whatever you decide can't go against these values. So it kind of narrows the fairway for them for where they can actually play. But unless it really has to be done a certain way, like sometimes there's a regulatory or an ethical reason, or it just has to be done this way, then I'll say it really has to be done this way, so I need you to do this. But most often I try to make it their decision. It's just so much more powerful when they own it, and when it's theirs.
What makes me think is Bezos that has the type 1 and type 2 decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Like the type 1 is the revolving door, or type 2 is the non-revolving. Like, if we do this and it doesn't work out, we'll just go through the door again. Versus if we do this and it doesn't work out, we could be in regulatory hot water. We could lose the company.
Yeah.
There's a different weight.
Yeah.
not all decisions. I think maybe I'm getting it wrong, but I think type 1 is we treat almost everything like type 1, even when it's not.
Yeah.
You're like, it's okay. What do you think? Like, if it doesn't work out, well, we'll just redo it and go forward again. And like, that is part of the process.
Yeah. And
Can be.
I think a question to often ask is, how hard is this to undo?
Yeah.
If,
I like that.
If this doesn't work, like if you're changing, a compensation plan or something for a year, I don't love tweaking compensation plans too often, but if it's like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Someone's going to be a little bit unhappy or a little bit
that can
more
be sacred
happy.
ground, though. You have to be careful with comp.
For sure. But thinking of it that way, like, is this something that's going to make somebody quit?
Yeah.
Or is this something that's, hopefully going to incentivize them to do something, and if it doesn't work quite as well, we just won't do it next year. And then weighing those decisions, like the quit decisions, like drastically changing people's paycheck is usually not good unless you're very, very certain. But little things, if we can undo this, or if 3 months later we find this was just a silly decision, just cancel it, just stop doing it, and that's okay too. And I think in the times where we've done that in our company, which is lots, where you kind of do something and then you get a bunch of feedback from our people that say, hey, this isn't working very well.
This is not a great idea.
We want to change this. And then you change it, and then you're able to go to your people and say, we did this thing because here were the reasons that we did it. Yeah. We thought it was going to work out a certain way. It didn't work out as planned. You gave us feedback saying that you wanted it changed. So we changed it based on your feedback, and here's the new outcome. That goes a long way. Like, I think people really appreciate that in a company when they're like, I gave my suggestions to the leaders based on something I didn't like. They thought about it, and then they changed it, and they told me why, and now here's the new outcome. Like, that's really good. That's a really good thing.
You mentioned project management earlier, something that I've fallen in love with, and like just a simple RACI. Responsible and accountable in projects, that gets really clear. But consulted and informed should not be overlooked.
Yeah.
They're incredibly valuable. Someone going, well, this isn't exactly what I wanted, but they at least talked to me about it. They at least asked me. It just feels human that way to like, we might still do what we do, but you were involved. You were involved.
I think the hardest part with RACIs is remembering that you made them. Remembering that you made that matrix.
100%.
Because it usually gets put into a project charter somewhere, and it's almost like that needs to be printed off and just put on your desk or pinned to the wall. And every day or two, you look up at it and say, "Oh yeah, did I consult Johnny, or did I inform Johnny? Did I do that?"
I'm at the phase of trying to bring it up as often as possible. So our team, because we have some people that really love it and other people that are like, yeah, I think we did that once. So we're at the trying to instill that a little bit. So it's very top of mind for
absolutely.
me. I'm at the bring it up at nauseum phase.
Good, perfect.
I had a politician tell me once, Tyler, when your audience starts getting annoyed by your message, that's when you know they're actually hearing you. I'm like, it's aggressive, but I don't think you're wrong.
It's so true. Or at least once you feel annoyed with saying your message over and over, then you know.
And you see the odd eye roll on the Zoom call.
Yeah, it's like, okay, perfect. Well, people are getting this.
So you made the comment about, well, obviously you joined a company that is 167, but it was 163 years when you joined it.
Yeah.
So 4 years ago. You're the new guy, but you're also the senior leader.
Yeah.
I would imagine most of the senior leadership team was there before you came on.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about that transition of coming in. And I know you to be a curious leader. I know you to be inclusive and open. But everybody there knew more than you, but yet you're the new leader. You're supposed to have the new way. Talk to me a little bit about, I'm assuming that was an interesting journey on lots of fronts.
Absolutely. I mean, it was, so I've been the CEO of Wajax here for the last 4 years, and it's just been the most interesting and fascinating learning experience of my career, for sure.
Very cool.
And I wouldn't give up a second of it. And, coming in as the new guy, I think probably even a bit as the underdog, like the people that weren't expecting the guy that was running the small little subsidiary to end up in this role. So not necessarily having to prove yourself, but needing to build credibility with your team.
There's a little plot line there. There's a little mini plot line there. For sure there is.
For sure there is. And so there were just a lot of time spent in the field and with the team. So I took the first 3 months to travel around the country and visit a bunch of our branches, as many as I could, most of them actually.
How many branches do you guys have across the country?
A little over 100.
That's what
I think I got to 80 of them in that period.
Solid.
And
solid showing.
Yeah, and then just meet the people and find out, where are the growth opportunities, what are the challenges, and try to synthesize that into some themes that made sense. And so I kind of got all that information together and said, here's what I'm hearing from the front lines. How does that match up with our existing strategy?
Nice.
And try to just meld all of that together. So me and the leadership team worked on that strategy. We didn't have a set of written core values, so we went through the process of documenting those, which I thought was pretty important. I mean, the values had always been there.
Yes.
They just weren't on a piece of paper. And
you're not around for that many years without having shared ways of doing things.
And they weren't posted on the wall. And then there's a certain culture in the company. And I would say the culture was, like focused and driven, get stuff done and just go. And which is great. Like you want to have a performance driven culture in a company, which we did. But what we also had was quite high attrition.
Interesting.
And like way above industry standard, losing a lot of people in the first year. And as any business leader knows, there's a pretty big cost to that. It's
more, whatever you think it is, it's more.
Yeah, absolutely. So we hired a great chief people officer and said, let's try to work on this and try to make it feel like a company that cares more about its people and actually care more about its people. That will hopefully incentivize them to stay because they're not feeling like they're just being grinded too hard. And so we went through that journey and had some success on that front. And so that was a different culture and a different feel.
Yeah, totally.
And so we use the term people first at the company to try to drive some of this caring for the people to just create a better sense of belonging and keep people within the company and keep them from going to the competition or going elsewhere. And it was good, but I think where we made some mistakes, or where I made some mistakes, is we tried to have this shift in the culture to kind of to deal with this attrition problem, but we didn't honor the performance culture enough. And so it started to happen to some extent is almost as people first terminology started to get weaponized a little bit. So, I mean, working on evenings and weekends was always normal. And then now I'd hear a story from, kind of deep in the organization where a manager asks their person to do that and say, hey, I need you to come in on the weekend. And they said, well, that's not very people first. And so it almost started to pull away from the previous culture. And so I think that was a mistake that we made, that we weren't specific enough and clear enough to say that the culture that we have now is great.
Yeah.
And it drives awesome results. And what we want to do is we want to add a layer on top of it. And I think that communication wasn't nearly as clear as it was. So I think it set us back a little bit for a short period of time.
Okay.
And then we kind of, came back with that communication once I realized what was happening. So that was kind of a big learning thing on
That's such
culture.
a great example of like a really good intention, but just not extrapolated out that one notch further on the graph
Yeah.
of like, oh, what if this actually starts to eat that?
Yeah.
And being a publicly traded company, quarterly results, shareholders, performance is like, I always joke, even I wrote this book, curiosity in life is lovely, but in business, performance is that like, this is a performance sport.
Yeah.
And we keep score by returns, by results, but also losing people, that's a negative scorecard.
Yeah, for sure. And so we got that sorted out, and but it was just a really interesting cultural learning.
And I don't want to downplay it, got that sorted out. Thousands of people across multiple jurisdictions. The ship doesn't turn on a dime. So these are longer. By the time you realized it, then you had to unpack it. So is this like a couple-year journey for people listening? Because it makes it sound like it happened like, oh, we caught it and we fixed it, and 2 weeks later everything was good. That's probably not what happened.
I wouldn't say it was a couple of years. I think it could move quite a bit faster than that. Like once you tell people what is really important and just remind them, I think they generally listen, especially if the managers understand and kind of the mid-level managers understand, and you link compensation to it, and and you report on it, which we did all those things.
I'm assuming compensation and performance were pretty tightly linked. Yeah. And then you needed to just work the people kind of metrics into that.
Yeah, exactly. So it didn't take too long, but it was it was a full court press to kind of remind people, just like, we stopped talking about the real basics for a little bit and started to talk about a few other things. And so we said, okay, back to the basics. What's really important in our business? And for us, it's inventory, costs, and margins. And so we just driving that home every day. And our team responded really well. Like I think the team that we have there, we're pretty lucky at Wajax. It's just a company full of outstanding people who just care so much about customers, about each other,
and a little bit of design.
But they care about the business. They about each other, about customers. I think most of them like what they do, and
I imagine you're operating a lot of smaller centers.
Yeah,
where you are a major employer, you're a big part of the community. I'm friends with you on the weekend, but I also work with you at and that's small town everywhere.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Absolutely. And so we're pretty lucky that we've got that really great base of our team and customers and suppliers. So they responded really quickly, and when you have and we did have a year, we had a bit of a downturn kind of a couple of years after COVID, just the market in our particular segment. We're an industrial equipment supplier and servicer, and demand just dropped off. And our inventory got high because we were ordering as
you're tied directly to basically natural resources, right? Ultimately.
Yeah.
Extraction and production.
Yeah. And so we had a year where, where bonuses were not very good. So, most people are,
it gets everyone's attention.
Fairly driven by compensation.
Yep.
And whether they say it or not, it's a real thing, and it does drive behavior. And so, as soon as kind of that happened, some remessaging, everyone was back on track. So that was really great. But another interesting kind of cultural thing that I found was just the type of leader or leaders that you have affects things.
Okay.
Tell me more. So the previous leader to me at Wajax, his name was Mark. Incredible leader. He did so many good things with that company that really needed to get done. Like he did some big restructuring. He
was there for 10 years?
He was there for a decade. Yeah. He's an incredible leader, incredible man, and a mentor of mine. And I still call him.
Nice.
4 years later.
I'm sensing a theme for you.
Every now and then, and I'll just write down all my questions and say, Mark, I've got some questions here I need to pick your brain on, and he'll give me, he doesn't give me advice. He gives me here's how I would think about the problem, and here's how I've done it in the past. And but him and I are totally different. And so he's about 20 years older than me. He's retired now, and so great experience. But at Wajax, this was his fourth time as a public company CEO.
Okay, so
okay. And he was already he had been there for a decade. So the first couple of years figuring out what we need to do. And then it's like,
execute.
Here is what we're doing. And it's like, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. And that clarity, can be so good.
Because it clearly worked for the organization.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah. There's like the teams don't need to figure out a bunch of stuff. They're like, all right, we got our marching instructions. Let's go. Let's just go execute and turn it on to execution. And Mark was phenomenal at that. Whereas my leadership style is it's just different, and it's not better or worse. It's just different. And I'm a little bit more collaborative. Let's work on the strategy together, and help people figure out the path that they want to go a little bit more themselves, rather than saying here's what to do. And so just the company getting used to that.
Because I'm assuming a lot of your senior leadership team, you inherited, like they inherited you.
Yeah.
and they were under the old regime, right?
Yeah. And so just some interesting things creep up when that happens. So when there's a little bit more freedom in how the team strategizes and what they do, just some of the stronger personalities naturally will kind of grab more of the decision making.
Yes. The extroverts in the room. Yeah.
Yeah.
And don't oversimplify that.
And so, so that inevitably steps on other people's toes who aren't as loud to speak up, and it causes some conflicts around, okay, well, who's actually responsible for this? And why are you doing this? Seems like you're encroaching a little bit on what I previously did. And so I didn't appreciate, how much of an impact that could have. And I don't know how I would have done it differently.
Okay.
But
you kind of had to find it out somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. And
how did it start to show up? Like, was it brought to you, or did you start to be like, this has a bit of a smell test. Something's going on here. I'm not. Yeah.
I noticed some conflicts between some of the team members, and I thought, well, can't you just figure this out? But they weren't.
It's exactly what my brain was saying. I'm like, can't you guys just work it out?
Yeah. but ultimately it was in what they were used to is just having the lines a lot clearer on what they were responsible for or not responsible for. And there's I think there's such value in both ways of doing it. Like when you have very clear lines of what everyone is responsible for, and the senior leader, the CEO says, this is what we're doing, here's the strategy, you do this. This is what we're doing, you do this. It just creates such clarity in the organization, takes away a layer of kind of political friction, and it just allows people to get stuff done when you know exactly where you're going. If you're wanting to build the strategy with the team and kind of believing that maybe they have some of the better answers, then that one doesn't work so well. And that's kind of where I thought. I
appreciate your respective. Like both have their value, they're just different.
Yeah.
And if you don't recognize the difference, that's actually where the landmines might show up.
Yeah, exactly. And so those were a bunch of the lessons that I really learned from that, just around how the culture of ultimately of the previous leader and the previous team can have an impact when you're coming into an organization. So for anyone that's joining a company, really taking a look around and figuring, okay, how do decisions actually get made here? How is direction given here? Is it collaborative? Is it very directive? And then understanding that if you change that, it's okay, but there's going to be challenges. And I think the same thing would happen if you went the other way. I've not gone the other way, but I think going from a very collaborative, hey, we're all doing this together, to someone coming in saying, we're not collaborating on strategy. This is the strategy. You're doing this. You're doing this. You're doing this. They may not like that.
I think you'd find out quicker.
Yeah.
Like almost immediately.
Yeah, I think you'd find out quite quickly.
And did you have some, and again, I don't get into whatever details you feel comfortable with, did you have some attrition at the senior leadership level? Because there often is that new leader comes in, whoever's not on board with that leader leaves, that leader brings in some of their people, and like that's it's oversimplified. Was that some of your experience, or whatever degree you want to share?
Yeah, it was. Okay. Yeah. So, and I never really agreed when I heard that happening. Oh, there's a new person coming in. They're just bringing in a bunch of people, and their own team. And why would they do that? There's all these smart people left here. And so I always kind of, looking from the outside in, when I saw that happen, I thought, it was just like this bully coming in that's just firing everyone and bringing in their own people. But it's actually quite often not the case, right? Quite often the case is just the people that are there are great. They know what they're doing, but just the leadership styles no longer match, and it's just not an environment that is conducive to the type of work that they like to do. And so over time, they just kind of figure out, I'm just going to go somewhere that's just more aligned to my personality and my working style. And in some cases, if there's a burning platform, I totally understand. Like if there's been some really bad things that happen in the company financially,
It all depends.
Then you come in, you bring in your own CFO to kind of like really take control of the financial situation of the company, right? I get that.
Well, there's turnarounds. There's all kinds of situations.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, hey, I wouldn't be here if you guys hadn't messed this all up. to be really. And also, I think sometimes it gets underestimated. Like, it's a pretty intimate relationship, being a leader and having an executive leadership team. If you're trying to do anything of any scale, whether it's just be defensive of the world around you and try to maintain your position but grow, it's pretty intimate. Like, it's a business marriage in one way or another. However you want to dress that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And
those relationships are critical.
Yeah. And you know what, when I joined Wajax, it was during the pandemic. And so at that time, the board and everyone in the world thought, well, turns out we can do these jobs from anywhere.
Yeah.
And so we're based in Toronto. I live in Calgary. So I'm probably 80, 90, 100 hotel nights a year. So, and I'm in Toronto 20, 25 times a year. So I'm there a lot and spending time with the team, but it's not the same as being there all the time.
Interesting. Okay.
Right? It really isn't. And I personally hated remote working before COVID. I just could not figure it out. I was not good at it. I'd bring my computer home on the weekends and it would sit there staring at me, just ruining
good intentions,
ruining my weekends. And so I could not figure it out. And I was always hunched over at my kitchen. My back was sore. So I did not have it figured out. Then COVID came and I did like everyone figured it out.
We all figured it out.
Got a setup, got in a routine. And I found that I actually really quite like it. Sometimes I'd like it probably half-time is my kind of ideal, which actually worked really well.
Hybrid is the perfect blend in my opinion.
Yeah. When I was in Calgary, when I had reading, writing, concentrating work, I could just do that at home on my computer. And then also, because we have branches across the country, I had a lot of Teams calls and Zoom calls. So I would just...
You weren't going to be in their office anyway. So it really didn't matter where your phone happened to be located.
Exactly.
Your connection.
And then when I would go travel, I wouldn't even check emails the whole time I was there. I'm here to meet people and I'd be face-to-face with people all the time. But they're just... that whole magic of being in the office together, and I got this idea, let's just grab a couple people together and chat about it, and the water cooler talk. And
was the rest of your leadership team in Toronto?
They were sprinkled around too.
Okay.
But now most companies, including ours, are making a move to bring people all into the
you're seeing it happen
all into one city. Companies everywhere are doing it. I think it's probably the way that things would go. I think hybrid is still fine, but having people live in a city together just seems to make sense for most businesses if you want that real team collaboration.
It really does depend on what problems you're trying to like. Where stage are you at?
Yeah.
Are you just at a delivery phase where so-and-so and so-so can do the work because they know the work? If you're trying to create from scratch, it's challenging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Zoom is, we all gotten better at it. I used to hate Zoom calls. Now it's like my life.
But creating that camaraderie and just that it really increases the speed of decision making. I mean, our kind of at Wajax, our cadence is once a month we're all together for a day or two. Lots of decisions made, and then on the other kind of 2 weeks off, we do online for 4 or 5 hours.
Yep.
And so that works. As a team, we're together every 2 weeks and able to make decisions. But that you still usually are waiting a week and a half to say, okay, we'll put this on that agenda and we'll make that decision then. And
because you can pick up and call so and so, but to get everybody on, how many people on your senior leadership?
Exactly. So 7. So
okay.
Yeah. So having everyone together it
can turn into a whole bunch of little sidebars.
Yeah,
which is dangerous in other ways because I didn't talk to you, I talked to so and so because I couldn't get you on the call that exact minute.
Didn't follow the RACI.
Yes, I know. All the way back. We joked about this before we even got recording today about the reality of when I have time, I'll sit back and I'll be creative and I'll ask all the questions and I'll think about you think about mid-level management. Time is not on their side. It's always working against them. Thoughts on how, as leaders, as owners of companies, of individuals in those roles, how do we create a little bit more space for people to think? That's a big, bold statement question.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. I mean, I really try to make it a point to listen to people who are a lot older than me because and have had success. They just know things.
They've tripped over the landmine before.
Yeah, exactly. And every person that's like older and more senior in their career says the same thing. Like, you got to take time to think, like take time to meditate, and then take time to think and write and problem solve, like make time to do it.
Which is so easy to say and put a sticker on your fridge.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
So what I would personally do that I've been doing for years is I just go to a coffee shop. Like there's a Starbucks close to where I lived. We're in the country now, so it's not anything too close. But there was a Starbucks. That was
sometimes a little windshield time doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, and Starbucks
drive.
was a 20-minute walk from my house, and so I would book. I would just call it a think day, which was usually an afternoon or a morning. And
but you were deliberate about it, which
I was deliberate about it. I tried to realistically probably happen once or twice a month to do that, and I would go with specific problems that I wanted to solve, and I would write them on a piece of paper, just on a white sheet of paper. I would kind of write the problem, or if there were some articles that that were kind of related to that, I would print those off. And then there was also, some just some more kind of introspective, longer term thinking exercises. Okay. And there's a million of them on the internet.
There is.
Whether it's I subscribe to Mind Valley, and they have a lot of those types of things, and so that kind of stuff. And so I'd print some of those off, and I would just go there, and I would just, I like tea, so I would drink tea. And for 3 or 4 hours, I would just go through those things and write. And it's shocking how much progress you can make, even in 1 or 2 hours of just sitting there with a coffee and just pop in your headphones and listen to some instrumental music or something. Have your coffee and just be somewhere that's not in your house, and where phone is off,
where all the other distractions are not readily available.
Yeah. So I'd never brought my computer, and I would have my phone, but I would shut it off when I was there. And like 2 or 3 hours, you can just get through. And then I have all these handwritten notes, and then I'd kind of pull off what I needed from there into actual action items, and then I would kind of write the date, and then I would just file it. So I've got a folder of all of that has all of these that has all of these in there, which I look back on every now and then. So that's what I did. It seemed to work. And I remember chatting with one of our managers. He called me up, and he was one of our frontline managers, and he was just saying that he's kind of drowning in this and that, and I just sent out an email to our staff about, hey, trying to exactly this, encouraging our leaders to try to make some time to think. And he said, well, that's all easy for you to say. You can make the time. I'm busy fighting these fires.
Yeah.
And so I just asked, I said, how far is the closest Starbucks? And he looked it up. He said, 30 minutes. He said, do you think you could walk there, take 2 hours and write down some thoughts and then walk back? He said, 3 hours. And I said, well, I can't take 3 hours to do that. And then so I asked him, I said, didn't you just take a week off last week? Like, you were gone and your phone was off. He said, yeah. Well, if you can take a week off, how come you can't take 3 hours off?
A little challenge.
And
nice.
And then, and that kind of just set off a little light bulb. And so well, if I can take vacation off, maybe I can get out of the office for just 3 hours once a month. Right? Like people go to a doctor appointment all the time for 3 hours. People go to their kids' thing. You can do it.
You challenge somebody else, had to give himself permission.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we create our own. I'm very good at my own stories.
Yeah. We all are.
They're very they're very, very convincing. I really appreciate that, creating like the deliberate. What I've heard so often in just chatting with you today, and I've known to be true, like even when you talk about talking to a mentor, you wrote down some questions. Before you go, you made a few notes. I'm hearing a high degree of just intentionality, although subtle. It sounds like you've been very intentional. Like, well, before I'm going to get value from this person, let me force myself to go. I'm going to write down a few questions. Yeah. How critical is it, or where has that always been you, or is that a habit you picked up over time?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't like wasting people's time. And I don't appreciate
vice versa.
My time being
that's a do unto others kind
either.
of thing. Yeah.
And so I think just that being prepared when you go see someone makes sense, and it takes so little effort.
It does.
Yeah. It's so little effort. I mean, 5 minutes of preparation is usually far more than you actually need.
Yeah.
I mean, for anything.
That's awesome.
If you're going to meet with somebody, I mean, just pop up their LinkedIn profile, type in their name to Google, and then think about something that you're curious about and write down 2 questions. Like that's not even 5 minutes. and I think it just shows a lot of, it shows respect for their time. And it really does make for a better conversation, I think.
It's funny. I did something the other day. I was going to do a podcast with somebody, relatively public figure, but I got a call and someone said, "Hey, do you want to go skiing? It's a powder day." I'm like, "Yeah, but I want to prep." And so I actually opened up ChatGPT. I said, "Hey, pull up this person and get everything you can on them. Now pretend to be them and let's do a mock podcast while I was driving to the ski hill."
Perfect.
And I got there and I was like, "Oh wow, I feel like I could just recorded it." And it's funny. Obviously, the conversation with the real person was completely different, but that little bit of prep time that I just did in the car, spent 30 minutes. I kind of laughed and told somebody, they're like, "It's an interesting little hack." But to your point about just mentally, I felt prepared, showed up for the conversation, just feeling so much more comfortable. I would believe it felt more respectful because I had some context and I'd done a little bit of work. Yeah. But it was a great way to use a tool that we all have now on our phones and on our computers. Yeah. Cost nothing. And it was actually a pretty neat experience. It was a lot of fun.
I wrote a prompt for Copilot. We use Copilot at work, so it has access. So it's Microsoft's product.
Has access to all your data.
Yeah, your emails. It can search through your files, your calendars, and everything that you have online. So it's just a script that says, look up for my upcoming week. Look in my calendar. Find all the email addresses in the invite box that are not internal email addresses.
Okay.
Just for people that I'm meeting with externally. And then for those people, I want you to pull up their LinkedIn profile, do a quick Google search and find out something about them, and then go through everything that I have. Go through old meetings, go through meeting notes, go through emails, go through all my files, find if their name's mentioned, and then just put all of that together in just 1 or 2 paragraphs for each person for the week. And you just kind of write that. It took me a few times to get that script
right. Yeah.
But once I got that script right, which probably took me 45 minutes to get it really right, then it takes, now it's like a 10-second operation, and you have all this great information. So
now you have it's your presidential briefing, right?
Yeah.
Here's who you're meeting with today. Blah, 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 blah. Here's some quick, how is Copilot? Because I've heard mixed reviews, but it sounds like you've used it in a way that's working for you.
Yeah. It's okay. I think
starting to a Microsoft review session here, but I'm really curious.
Why not?
I'm curious. I can't help it.
I find ChatGPT better for most things, but it doesn't have access to my files.
For sure.
So I use
you should keep it that way.
I use Copilot for when I'm doing a prompt that requires searching kind of my email
needs to have some internal
Yeah.
intelligence. That's a really interesting prompt, and so time consuming for a human to do, but so easy for AI to do.
Yeah,
such a
and for anyone that's in sales or anything like that, it just does it.
Well, if you're not doing it, you're kind of shame on you. Yeah. A couple quick questions, more just the tips and tricks. You're in a situation and you're catching yourself being called to react versus reflect. How do you manage it?
Sometimes poorly.
Appreciate the honesty.
Sometimes I just react. I've got some really great people on our executive team that keep me from doing that sometimes. Good. Which is great. But quite often my default answer to people is, I need to think about that, and I need to bounce this off of a couple other people. And the team that I work with knows that I appreciate bouncing ideas off of others, so they know to give a little bit more time. It's pretty rare, very, very rare, that I'll get a request from one of the people that I work with that says, "Here's a problem and I need an answer now," or even today. Usually I've got a couple of days because they know that I'm going to run.
And also assume by the time the problem gets to you, it's at a scope and scale that maybe you need to look at the elephant from a few different sides.
Yeah. If often when things do get to me, I'm kind of the tiebreaker. Yeah. And there's 2 paths that we could do this, and
they're responsible, but you're accountable. And so
and usually, there's 2 people. One person wants to do it one way, one person wants to do it another way. Okay. And I found our team's really respectful, and they'll have their opinions, and then at some point they get to hey, this is one of those things.
Put it in front of the judge.
Yeah, and that's basically what it is. And then I'll have to say, okay, well, give me all the information. Let me think about it. I'll see if I need any other information. Then I'll get back to you with an answer tomorrow, which is usually how I try to do it.
is your natural tendency to want to respond quick? And have you learned the other, or have you always been give me a little bit of time, I'll get back to you?
I think everyone's just tendency is to try to fix a problem.
It's mine for sure.
Or at least that's been beat into us with, just the instant nature of everything that we do and emails and social media.
The risk of certainty all the way back around.
Yeah, we just, I got an email. I need to answer it. I can't have any emails in my inbox. Let's boom, 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 get it done. So I think we've all been...
The tyranny of now.
Yeah, I think we've all been trained by the world to do that. But I like to think that I try to be thoughtful. And I like to think that I've been that way, but I don't know. I think if you ask some of my previous teammates or my wife or friends, they might be able to give you a better idea.
Well, the best part is they're not in the room, man. It's you. We're not going to fact check. I'm like, is he really like this? I joke, but I'm like, I try to catch myself because my indulgence is now.
Yeah.
But my wisdom says, wait a few minutes. So I'm like, did that feel really good? I probably shouldn't have responded that quickly.
Yeah, so true.
Again, back to self-curiosity, like, when do I catch myself? One last one. Maybe not, I should make that promise. The HiPPO, the highest paid person's opinion, the person that stands up and just prophesizes in front of the room. What do you do when you encounter it? What do you do when you see it in the mirror?
I really do try to pull people's opinions. I do think over the years that's something that I think it's a strength, that I really will try to get people's opinions, and I do try to pull the opinions out of people who are quieter. Just because it's not because they don't have as good information. It's just because they're shyer to speak up. And we've got some great people on our leadership team who even still, these are kind of senior VP, SVP, EVP level, and I'll have to pull information out of them. And it's just
not their tendency.
Yeah, and it's because their view is that I'm not an expert in this area, so I'm not going to provide an opinion. And so I almost have to coach them to say, I know you're not the expert in this, but you've been at this company for a long time, and I know you have an opinion based on things that you've seen. So just frame it that way. Like I coach them and say, start your sentence with, I'm not an expert in this, but based on what I've seen, this would be my opinion. Start it that way so that you don't feel like you're speaking out of turn. And I find we get some pretty good information that way.
Sometimes I find the non-experts ask the best questions.
Yeah.
Because they're like, maybe this is obvious to everybody else, but is that supposed to be blue? And they're like, actually, I don't know. I thought you knew.
So true.
Yeah, I was like, I thought you all knew it was supposed to be blue. Like, groupthink is so dangerous, especially with expertise.
Yeah. So
I just trusted someone that had figured out what the hell is going on here.
Yeah.
Actually.
I mean, no one person's smarter than everybody. So I really try to get as much information from the team that I can. And in some cases, it is up to me to make the final decision. And sometimes it's with good information, and sometimes it's not with great information, but a decision needs to be made regardless.
Yeah.
And so I'll try to frame it that way so that people know that's like, we don't have all the information here, but this is good enough. This decision we can undo with some difficulty, but not too much difficulty. Yeah. So this is what we're doing. And when we walk out of here, we need everyone aligned and singing from this song sheet. But
there's a permissibility that if we realize 6 months from now this wasn't the right decision, we can walk it back.
Yeah, and the teams want that, right? Like any team is fine with that. When their leader says, we don't have perfect information, based on what we have, this is what we're doing, this is the path. They're like, cool, great. Moving on.
Go forward. Yeah. And then it doesn't be like, who made that wrong? No, that's not how it is, right?
Yeah.
How much, do you have any client-facing time at all? Even some of the major, because you work with obviously some very large businesses.
Yeah, so it's a little bit. I find most of when in my role, when I'm not doing internal things, it's time spent with the board, time spent with investors, banks, analysts. So those are some of the outside groups that I deal with, and also our vendors. So our largest and most important relationships are with some of our vendors, just because they're pretty big dollars going back and forth every year.
Yep.
So I spend a lot of time with them. There's a few.
You're kind of a bit of a value-added reseller. Is that fair?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you're at such a scale, it's easy not to think of it that way. But that's kind of what.
We're a value-added reseller and servicer. That's it.
Okay.
We have 1,000 technicians that fix stuff and.
If you're running equipment, you're doing repairs. And you're buying parts. Right?
Absolutely. That's a.
Because that can be a different world also, when you're dealing with a client who's always right when they're not. And how do you maintain that kind of openness and curiosity while you're trying to lead, but also fully be in service? But we could do probably a whole other podcast around that.
I find just we've got such good teams to deal with our clients that I'm never brought in to solve a problem for a client. So
they just know it, live it, breathe it.
Yeah, exactly. There and we have a chart of authority that for how much they're able to do, and so that it's always well within everyone's delegation of authority for what they're able to fix with the customers. So I get called in usually just to shake hands, right? Like it's a big customer, things are going well, come in and say, they asked me to come in and say, thanks for the business. Our team's asked me to come in.
Yep. Nice.
Or if things aren't going that well, they'll ask me to come in.
On both sides, we're going to celebrate, or, hey, we need you to show up.
Yeah. They just show a presence, show that, that we care, that we're putting people on this, and tell the customer that we're going to fix it. And just so that they hear it from me.
No matter how big or how complex the business, sometimes just showing up that you actually care.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes all the difference.
It really goes.
Okay, well, I guess you guys do care about our business, and so
it really does go a long way. Yeah, just showing up, having having a few questions and some knowledge of what's going on is pretty powerful.
We're getting near the end here, but I'm already going to set up our next episode, which is the CEO to the board and how curiosity lives there. Because I think that's a whole other kind of topic. As I'm thinking, it is our tendency to already plan the next one. So, because I think that's a whole different layer. And we really focused on today. And thanks for being so transparent and kind of your journey through the leadership journey and kind of your own, hey, that's not working. Maybe I should try something else, to your experience at Wajax and everything you've learned there. But I think the perspective of now being a CEO of a large company is established and the relationship with the board. So do you want to touch on that a little, maybe a teaser for our next episode? Because that feels like a whole different dynamic.
It absolutely is. And it was a new one for me. I'd never reported to a board like this, and, quite a formal board. Including me, there's 9 people on the board. So, different personalities, different wants. I would say, we have a great board, and there's I don't see too many personal agendas, but there are agendas on what they think is important in the company to get done. And
there's a lot of human beings too. It's a lot of people.
And kind of rallying all those opinions and then landing on something that that is the right solution for the business. That's that will be board supported
and publicly traded. How long has Wajax been publicly traded?
Since the 1960s, so long time.
Again, for a long time.
Yeah,
impressive organization.
Yeah.
If people want to reach out, and I know your inbox is probably full, but I know you're on LinkedIn. You keep yourself. You're fairly open to talk to people, even though I know there's only so many hours in the day. Any recommends for people that want to touch base or?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the easiest place to find me. Nice. Coming up, I'll have a little more time on my hands. I'm taking a sabbatical.
Oh, congratulations.
Yep. So I'm
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's very cool. Congrats.
Yeah. So we kicked off a CEO search at Wajax 4 or 5 months ago. The board and I jointly agreed it was a good time and the company was in a good spot.
Cool for you.
And so I'll be done in about a month. And
maybe when this goes live, this is my year in the future. Yeah. So that's fabulous.
Yeah. And so I think,
does that mean you're going to have a whole bunch of time to do mentorship? Because that sounds,
there you go.
All of a sudden your phone's ringing off that's exciting. That's a cool stage and phase for you.
Yeah. I've got kids that are 16, twins. And so, for whatever weird reason, they still like hanging out with mom and dad. So me and my wife want to spend a bunch of time with them and do some cool things with them. We just moved into a house in the country, so I want to dive into country living.
Lovely.
And then, I think like every person that's pretty busy in their career, there's just a long list of personal things that you've always really wanted to get to, and you get to them, but not necessarily in the way that you want to get to them.
Not with the same fervor, right? You can't really I got all day to just do this crazy thing.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be.
And so I've got a long list of personal projects that I want to tackle, and I'm going to do them all. And then
sounds like curiosity running rampant moves. I love.
Definitely curious as hell. And
that's exciting times for you.
Yeah, really, really excited. So that will be starting up. I think that'll be at least a year, maybe more, maybe a little less. I don't really know. I have no concrete plans for what's on the other end of it, but it's something that I've always wanted to do. To take a meaningful chunk of time off. I'm in my mid 40s, so I've got lots of runway left in my 100%. Career, and I feel pretty fortunate that.
But your girls are only 16 months, right?
Exactly, and I do feel fortunate that I love working. I really, really like it. And I think you're the same way. We're pretty blessed that the thing that we get to go do every day generally we like, and
we have fun doing it.
Yeah, and we have fun doing it. So I'll probably work into my 70s. I don't know. I like a full retirement and just golfing every day. I at least at this
I
stage.
think retire means
doesn't sound
something
appealing.
when you're doing, and it's such a bumper sticker. When you're doing something you like doing,
Yeah.
What am I retiring away from? To do what? To do more of this?
Yeah. And
I'm
so
gonna retire so I can do more podcasts. Well, I already got that checked off, so I'm good.
yeah. So I think so, but I do like the idea of a mid-career break. At a time when you can still, when you're really healthy, to do a bunch of really cool things, spend some time with family, do all these personal things that you really wanted to do. Recharge the batteries a bit and then get back to something. I don't know what the something will be. It'll most likely be something in business, but
I was to place money on it.
Yeah. but
this is a little bit of the die with zero. This is a little bit of kind of live life now. Don't wait to live it.
Absolutely.
Oh, then I'll have fun when this happens.
Yeah.
How about do that?
That's a great book too. Die with Zero.
I think it's
love that one.
You hear the title, you get it, but I still think it's worth it. Shifted some of my beliefs. I was like,
it really changed some of my beliefs too.
I'm like, well, I'm gonna, I recently bought a property out in the country after reading that book. I was like, you know what? Why wait when you've got your health? And
What are you waiting for?
What are you waiting for? Absolutely, it's now. Any lasting advice for leader, aspirational, looks at you and go, wow, you've done it, you figured it out. They're on their journey. I very much wrote this book for people that are looking for, maybe there's a different way. It's not tyrannical. It's not top down. It's more inclusive, which I know is your leadership style. Any advice for somebody who right now is just struggle with finding the time to think about that while they're trying to survive and thrive in their current role?
Yeah, I think everyone's on their own journey, right? Like it's not a race, and the only well, I guess it is, but the only one you're racing against is yourself. Yeah, they're so looking at what other people have done. It's I don't think that's really the right way to do it. You can
comparison is the thief of joy?
Yeah,
I read that on some Instagram meme, and I was like,
yeah,
some truth there, some truth in that one.
Yeah, I think running your own race, and what I did really find useful is taking those afternoons or mornings at Starbucks or whatever your local place is, and tackling some of those deeper questions. Like, what is it that makes me happy? What is it that brings me energy? What are all the ways that success could look like for me in 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years for me? And putting pen to paper on that, for me, just really gave just a ton of clarity on what was important, what's not important, where I should be putting my time. And then you can if you want to do it for your work or your business, even those things, I spent a bunch of afternoons at Starbucks saying, what is really important in this business, right? Like what are the, if I could only do 1 or 2 things, what would they be? Like, where should I put my effort and my energy? And actually writing that out in paragraphs just really brings a sense of clarity on where you should be spending your time. And when you leave those little sessions, every single time I left one of those little Starbucks sessions, I told myself, this is just the best use of my time. Like, I need to do this more. And then, of course, you get caught up in all the whirlwind again.
And like, there's a joke, is this a $100 hour of my time, or is this a $10,000 hour? Those are $10,000 hours.
Yeah,
not more.
It was
if not more.
Those were absolutely the best hours that I spent in terms of business and personal contemplation.
I love defining another book. I don't know if you're just made me think of it, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Another good one about, you define your version of success. And it's not what social media or the world at large tells you it is. It's your version of that. And I think that's true for your business and personal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. My friend, thank you for another amazing conversation.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
That was wonderful. Thanks, Tyler.
Thank you.